My lords, I'm going to start with history. I used to live on Leather Lane in central London, between the City and Westminster, where despite the Victorian urban expansion, a dairy farm continued to operate in the midst of the city. That was no historical accident. With the adulteration of milk rampant, with filthy water and much worse, the only way that consumers could be sure that milk would not kill them or their children was if they actually saw it come out of the cow. A few years ago, I was privileged to visit the Rochdale Pioneers Museum, in the home of the first successful consumer cooperative in the UK, the Rochdale Equitable Pioneers Society, founded in 1844. Their aim was not just to ensure affordable products, but safe and genuine products, without sawdust in the flour or arsenic in the sugar. But not everyone had a cooperative nearby. It was the responsibility of the state. Back in the 19th century, it was eventually conceded to protect consumers. Amid a huge ideological debate about the freedom of traders to sell whatever they liked, the 1875 Sale of Food and Drugs Act was passed. However, it took time to take effect. In 1877, a quarter of all the milk examined by the local government board was seriously adulterated. However, the law worked. By 1894, adulterated milk accounted for less than 10% of all samples. Campaigning worked to get the law, and the law worked for the good of the people. Lives were saved. And as I welcome the noble lady Baroness Winterton of Doncaster in the wonderful maiden speech, as the noble lady noted, such protections are particularly important for the most vulnerable in society. But today, in 2024, we are seriously failing to provide protections. The noble Lord Foster of Bath, the noble Lady Baroness Brinton and others have referred to the fact that has for some time been very clear that there is a huge problem with lithium-ion batteries and chargers. And yet, we've seen this problem and there has been no action. So I would like to ask the noble Lord the Minister a specific question about what timeframe the government sees for taking action on this. I don't know if it's necessary. Do we have to wait for this bill to go through the many months it will undoubtedly take? Could something not be done sooner? As the noble Earl Lindsay said, bringing the noble Earl's particular expertise to this debate, in the current age we need a kind of agility in reacting to changing products and changing circumstances and changing methods of sale. But we are utterly failing. Last weekend I was listening to the London Review of Books podcast with James Butler, who closely followed and reported on the evidence to the Grenfell Tower inquiry, speaking angrily, rightly, about the decades of failure, regulatory failure, that led to the death of 72 people. Now, when you read in Hansard the debates about the 1875 Act, we had people then making the same kind of arguments that they make today about the need to protect business from extra costs, about the need to allow business to make profits, about the need to allow freedom of trade, even of substandard products. But what could be more central to the role of government than keeping people safe? It is demonstrably clear that the exercise of the rhetoric of so-called cutting red tape has killed and continues to kill. Anyone using that language really should take a good hard look at themselves. Taking the US approach, waiting until a product kills and injures, and then setting the injured consumer or their relatives against the enormous weight of multinational companies, or in pursuit of some fly-by-night trader who can't possibly be located, in the hope of financial recompense through the slow lottery of the courts, years or decades later, which of course will not restore their life or their health, is indefensible and ineffective. It's fit only for a society that does not care for its people. But product regulation is not just a matter of life and death. It's also about keeping a basic quality of life and well-being, not just for the purchasers of the products, but for general society and our disastrously battered environment on this planet where the boundaries for novel entities have already been exceeded, in addition to the now acutely obvious climate emergency and nature crisis. Product regulation is crucial in the quality of our everyday lives and health in both obvious and in more subtle ways. How much energy your TV or computer uses, how much noise your neighbour's strimmer makes, how much pollution you're breathing in as you walk down the pavement affect all of us every minute of every day. With public health in the UK in such a terrible state, this is even more crucial. Since Brexit, Europe has demonstrably, in health and well-being and the safety of its products, continue to advance, if, as the European Green Parties regularly point out, far too slowly still, while the UK has been sliding further and further behind. Now, I want to particularly note 3 briefings that I received before this debate from the Green Alliance, Friends of the Earth and the Institute for European Environmental Politics. They are, as those names suggest, particularly focused on environmental health. But of course, what we need to be adopting is a One Health approach that acknowledges that environmental health, animal health and human health are all intimately interrelated. And in that context, I do have to note, as I acknowledge the Noble Lord the Minister did in his introduction, that this is an environmental bill and therefore it contains significant devolved elements which are of covering areas under the control of both the Scottish Parliament and the Senate. Now, I note that the Noble Lord Wigley has been listening closely to our debate, and I would expect that in later stages of this bill, these are issues we may well be working on together. Now, however, I guess it's probably already clear from the comments I've made that this bill, from the Green Party perspective, is welcome, if severely insufficient in its current form and approach. I foresee many of debate about may or must in its clauses, and surely the Labour Party will not be reversing the kinds of positions they took when debating such matters when they were on the opposition benches. I'm hoping we're not going to see the kind of 180-degree U-turn that we saw from the Noble Lord Sandhurst, much as I am glad to see that the Conservative Party is now concerned about Henry VIII's clauses. Now, there's a couple of areas I just very briefly want to focus on. Chemical regulation. This is a huge area of concern, with the science fast exposing how disastrously we have poisoned this planet. And I am looking forward to, from the Minister, either today or down the track, to a commitment to either a new chemical strategy or a new chemicals agency, something that I note that the Royal Society of Chemistry has been calling for. I also just want to take a brief look at the advances that are being made in Europe, particularly the EU's Eco-Design for Sustainable Products regulation, which entered into force on the 18th of July this year. And this is part of a wider circular economy plan. And this is an approach that I would hope to see the government taking forward, because it's not focused on a particular problem or a particular product, but it is a framework law that aims to drive forward improvements across a whole range of different products and product categories, encouraging products that use less energy, so save consumers money, that last longer, that can be easily repaired or recycled, that contain more recycled content, and have parts that can easily be disassembled and put to further use. It ensures that each product should have a digital product passport, so that producers have to collect and record the sustainability of their products. This means we can look at how to best use these products into the future. Does the government plan to take a similar approach? The other point that I'm surprised perhaps that this debate hasn't focused more on, the issue of chemical substances in toys, an obvious area of grave concern to the health of our current and future generations. We need to protect children, particularly from exposure to harmful endocrine-disrupting chemicals. And I note that public awareness of PFOS and forever chemicals is growing fast, and I think the government is going to find itself coming under considerable pressure in these areas very soon. At the moment, the bill's powers appear to primarily cover products that come under the Department for Business and Trade and the Office for Product Safety and Standards. Is the government prepared to consider, and something I'd be delighted to discuss with the Noble Lord the Minister, whether the bill can be extended to cover the EU REACH restrictions and bans in other consumer products not falling into those categories? An obvious example here is formaldehyde in furniture, an area of growing health concern. I've got one final point, probably two final points to make actually. One is about Clause 11 of the bill, which lists the regulations to be considered under the affirmative procedure, but missed an opportunity to deal with something that, again, the now government frequently lamented from these benches, the impossibility of your Lordship's House of dealing with statutory instruments, with regulations that are patently inadequate, but that we have no effective opportunity to stop. This would be a chance in Clause 11 to create further oversight, including perhaps a potential of an option for the House of Lords to disapprove draft instruments, send them back for extra work on the homework where significant concerns are raised. This, of course, is particularly crucial given that there's essentially in the current form of the bill no real commitments. And finally, I just want to pick up one point made by the Noble Lord Foster of Bath, and I'll declare my position as the Vice President of the Local Government Association. The Noble Lord rightly highlighted how our trading standards enforcement has been absolutely sliced away by austerity. Without enforcement, your Lordship's House can do wonders with this bill, but if the bill is not enforced, then that is pointless. So the issue of austerity's impact on local government, particularly trading standards, is something that I hope the government is going to address as a matter of urgency.